Hi guys, welcome to my study compass. In this video, I'll be walking you through the past paper Math P4 Variant 3 October-November 2021. Let's get started. The diagram shows three triangles T, A, and B drawn on a 1 cm squared grid. Describe fully the single transformation that maps triangle T onto triangle A. When we look at triangles T and A, they have the same size but different orientations, which means the transformation is either a rotation or a reflection. When we rotate triangle T 90 degrees in the clockwise direction, we get triangle A. Now we need to find the center of rotation. Since this is a 90-degree rotation, we find the center of rotation like this. We connect at least two corresponding points on triangles T and A. Then we draw the perpendicular bisectors of these lines. The intersection point of the bisectors is the center of rotation. In this case, we get 5, 2. And so the full description for this transformation will be rotation 90 degrees clockwise about the center 5, 2. Describe fully the single transformation that maps triangle T onto triangle B. When we look at triangles T and B, we can tell straight away that this is a translation because both triangles have exactly the same size and orientation. The only difference is they are located on different parts of the grid. So now all we need to do is find the translation vector. From the illustration, we can tell that the translation vector is -1, 4. And so the full description for the transformation will be translation by the vector -1, 4. Calculate the distance that each point of triangle T moves when it's mapped onto triangle B. We found the translation vector as -1, 4, and so the distance traveled would be square root of -1 all squared plus 4 squared centimeters. When we type this into the calculator, we have 4.12 centimeters rounded to 3 significant figures. A, B, and P are points on a circle center O, and angle OBA is 38 degrees. Find angle APB. Chord AB subtends angle APB at the circumference of the circle and subtends another angle AOB at the center of the circle. This means angle APB is half of angle AOB. OA and OB are radii of the circle, which makes triangle AOB an isosceles triangle. Base angles in an isosceles triangle are equal. When we subtract 2 times 38 degrees from 180 degrees, we get angle AOB as 104 degrees. So now angle APB is half of 104 degrees, which is equal to 52 degrees. CDEF is a cyclic quadrilateral and FC equals FE. TU is a tangent to the circle at C, and angle TCF is 50 degrees. Find angle EFC. Based on the alternate segment theorem, if this angle is 50 degrees, then this angle should also be equal to 50 degrees. The base angles in triangle EFC should be equal. So now if we subtract 2 times 50 degrees from 180 degrees, we get angle EFC as 80 degrees. Find angle CDE. Opposite angles in a cyclic quadrilateral should equal 180 degrees. And so when we subtract 80 degrees from 180 degrees, we get angle CDE as 100 degrees. The diagram shows a prism. The cross-section of the prism is a trapezium with CD parallel to AB and AC equals BD. AB is 10 centimeters. CD is 4 centimeters and the height of the trapezium is 5 centimeters. The volume of the prism is 525 cm cubed. The prism is made of iron. 1 centimeter cubed of iron has a mass of 7.8 grams. Calculate the mass of the prism. Give your answer in kilograms. If 1 cm cubed has a mass of 7.8 grams, then what would be the mass when the volume is 525 cm cubed? This is what we are calling x. From this setup, when we cross multiply and make x the subject, this is what we get. We want our final answer to be in kilograms, so we divide 7.8 by 1000. When we type this into the calculator, we get 4.095 kilograms. Calculate the length of the prism. This is the formula for the volume of a prism. When we make L the subject, this is what we get. We already know the volume V of the prism is 525 cm cubed. The cross-section of the prism is in the shape of a trapezium, and so the cross-sectional area would be half of 4 plus 10 times 5 centimeters squared, which is equal to 35 centimeters squared. So now the length of the prism would be 525 divided by 35 centimeters, which is equal to 15 centimeters. Calculate the total surface area of the prism. This is the equation for the total surface area of the prism. ABCD is the cross-section of the prism, and we found this area in the previous question as 35 centimeters squared. BDFH is a rectangle. We found the length of this rectangle in part AII as 15 centimeters. The width can be found by applying the Pythagoras theorem to the right-angled triangle. This gives us square root of 34 centimeters. And so 15 centimeters times square root of 34 centimeters equals 15 root 34 centimeters squared. CDGH is a rectangle and its area is 4 times 15 centimeters squared, which is equal to 60 centimeters squared. ABEF is also a rectangle and its area is 10 times 15 centimeters squared, which is equal to 150 centimeters squared. When we plug in these values into the total surface area equation, this is what we get. When we type this into the calculator, we have 455 centimeters squared, rounded to 3 significant figures. In a mathematically similar prism, the height of the trapezium is 10 centimeters. Calculate the volume of this prism. For similar shapes, the ratio of their volumes is equal to the cube of the ratio of their corresponding side lengths. HB is the height of the trapezium in the bigger prism, and that is 10 centimeters. HS is 5 centimeters and VS is 525 cm cubed. When we plug in these values into the equation and make VB the subject, this is what we get. When we type this into the calculator, we have 4,200 cm cubed. A cuboid measures 10 centimeters by 4 centimeters by 6 centimeters. Each side is measured correct to the nearest centimeter. Complete the inequality for the volume V of this cuboid. When we correct the dimensions of the cuboid to the nearest centimeter, we bring plus and minus 1 centimeter and divide 1 centimeter by 2. And so for the lower bound of the volume, this is what we have, and this is equal to 182.875 cm cubed. Then for the upper bound of the volume, this is what we have, and this is equal to 307.125 cm cubed. Solve the simultaneous equations. You must show all your working. Let's label the given equations. We can start by eliminating the variable q. So first, we multiply equation 1 by 2, and that gives us 4p minus 2q equals 14. Let's call this equation 3. So now we can eliminate Q by adding equation 2 to equation 3. This gives us 7p equals 21. When we divide both sides by 7, we get p equals 3. To get Q, we can plug in the value of p into any of the equations. Let's pick equation 1. This gives us 2 times 3 minus Q equals 7. When we make Q the subject, we get -1. Solve the equation x over 4 plus 2x over 3 equals 1. The LCM here is 12, so let's multiply through the equation by 12. 12 times x over 4 is 3x. 12 times 2x over 3 is 8x, and 12 times 1 is 12. 3x plus 8x is 11x. When we divide both sides by 11, we get x equals 12 over 11. This is an improper fraction, and we can convert it into a mixed fraction. 11 goes into 12 one time with a remainder of 1, which we divide by 12. And so we have 1 over 12. Solve the inequality. First, we add 2 to both sides of the inequality. -8 plus 2 is -6. 3x minus 2 plus 2 is 3x, and 7 plus 2 is 9. Now we divide the inequality by 3. -6 divided by 3 is -2. 3x divided by 3 is x, and 9 divided by 3 is 3. And so our final answer is x is greater than -2 and less than and equal to 3. Find the integer values of x that satisfy the inequality. -2 is not included in the inequality, so we start from -1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. Factorize completely. 16a minus 4a squared. The common factor is 4a. When we factor that out, we are left with 4 minus a. Write each of the following as a single fraction in its simplest form. 1 over 2a divided by 3 over 4b. In the first step, we bring 1 over 2a, then we replace the division with multiplication, and then bring in the reciprocal of 3 over 4b, which is 4b over 3. 2 goes into itself once and goes into 4 2 times. And so for the numerator, we have 1 times 2b, which is 2b. And for the denominator, we have a times 3, which is 3a. And so our final answer is 2b over 3a. 2 minus x over x minus 1. 2 is the same as 2 over 1. And so the LCM here is 1 times x minus 1, which is x minus 1. Since we multiplied the denominator of 2, which is 1, by x minus 1 to get the LCM, we also need to multiply 2 by x minus 1. For x over x minus 1, since we multiplied x minus 1 by 1 to get the LCM, we also need to multiply the numerator x by 1, which is x. When we expand the brackets, 2 times x is 2x, and 2 times -1 is -2. 2x minus x is x. And so our final answer here is x minus 2 over x minus 1. $500 is invested at a rate of 3% per year. Calculate the total interest earned at the end of 7 years when simple interest is paid. For simple interest, the total interest can be calculated using this formula. P is the principal, and that is $500. R is the rate, and that is 3%. And T is the time duration for the investment, which is 7. When we type this into the calculator, we get $105. Calculate the total interest earned at the end of 7 years when compound interest is paid. For compound interest, we can find the total interest by subtracting the principal P from the final value of the investment, which is A. We can find the value of A by using this formula. P is the principal, and that is $500. R is the rate, which is 3%, and T is 7. When we type this into the calculator, we get $114.94 rounded to 2 decimal places. The value of a car decreases exponentially by 10% each year. The value now is $6,269.40. Calculate the value of the car 3 years ago. Because of the keyword exponential, we know we can apply the exponential or compound interest formula. Since we are dealing with a decrease in this case, this will be a minus. Big A represents the final value of the car, which has been given as $6,269.40. Small a represents the initial value of the car, which is what we are finding. R is the rate, which is 10%, and T is 3. When we make A the subject, this is what we get. When we type this into the calculator, we have $8,600. Calculate AD. We can find AD by applying the sine rule to triangle ACD. This gives us AD divided by sine 50 degrees equals 12 centimeters divided by sine 100 degrees. When we make AD the subject, this is what we have. When we type this into the calculator, we get 9.33 centimeters rounded to 3 significant figures. Calculate angle BAC and show that it rounds to 40.42 degrees, correct to 2 decimal places. We can find angle BAC by applying the cosine rule to triangle ABC. BC is 8 centimeters, AB is 11 centimeters, and AC is 12 centimeters. When we plug in these values into the equation and make angle BAC the subject, this is what we have. When we type this into the calculator, we get 40.415 degrees, which is approximately 40.42 degrees, rounded to 2 decimal places. Calculate the area of the quadrilateral ABCD. The area of ABCD is equal to the area of triangle ADC plus the area of triangle ABC. The area of triangle ADC is half of 9.33 times 12 times sine 30 degrees, and the area of triangle ABC is half of 12 times 11 times sine 40.42 degrees. When we type this into the calculator, we get 70.8 centimeters squared rounded to 3 significant figures. Calculate the shortest distance from B to AC. The shortest distance from B to AC is the perpendicular distance from point B to AC. We've labeled this distance as y. We can find y using SOHCAHTOA. This gives us sine 40.42 degrees equals y divided by 11 centimeters. When we make y the subject, this is what we have. When we type this into the calculator, we get 7.13 centimeters rounded to 3 significant figures. Amer buys 3 cakes that cost 6 cents each and 2 loaves of bread that cost 2C minus 11 cents each. He spends a total of $5.87. Find the value of C. When we convert $5.87 to cents, we get 587 cents. And so we have 3 times C plus 2 times 2C minus 11 equals 587. When we expand the brackets, 2 times 2C is 4C. 2 times negative 11 is negative 22. When we group like terms, this is what we have. When we divide both sides by 7, we get C equals 87. A bottle of water costs $W. A bottle of juice costs W plus $1. Alex spends $22 on bottles of water and $42 on bottles of juice. The number of bottles of water is equal to the number of bottles of juice. Find the value of W. In the question, we were told that the number of bottles of water Alex buys is equal to the number of bottles of juice he buys. The number of bottles of water Alex buys is equal to the total amount he spent on buying the bottles of water, which is $22, divided by the unit cost of a bottle of water, which is W dollars. The number of bottles of juice he buys is equal to the total amount he spent on buying the juice, which is $42, divided by the unit cost of a bottle of juice, which is W plus $1. When we cross multiply, this is what we get. When we expand the brackets, 22 times W is 22W and 22 times 1 is 22. When we group like terms, this is what we get. When we divide both sides by 20, we get W equals 1.1. Alicia walks a distance of 9 kilometers at a speed of x kilometers per hour. She then runs a distance of 5 kilometers at a speed of 2x plus 1 kilometers per hour. The total time Alicia takes is 2.5 hours. Show that 10x squared minus 41x minus 18 equals 0. The total time Alicia takes would be equal to the time duration she walks, which we are calling T1, plus the time duration she runs, which we are calling T2. Time duration equals the distance traveled divided by the speed. And so the time duration she walks is 9 over x hours, and the time duration she runs is 5 over 2x plus 1 hours. We've also been given the total time duration as 2.5 hours. When we multiply through the equation by x times x plus 1, this is what we get. When we expand the brackets on both sides of the equation, this is what we have. So now when we move all the terms to one side of the equation and group like terms, we have 5x squared minus 20.5x minus 9 equals 0. When we multiply through the equation by 2, we get 10x squared minus 41x minus 18 equals 0. Work out Alicia's running speed. You must show all your working. We've been given Alicia's running speed as 2x plus 1 kilometers per hour. We can find the value of x by solving this quadratic equation. When we apply the quadratic formula to this equation, this is what we get. The numbers under the square root, negative 41 squared minus 4 times 10 times negative 18 is 2,401, and the denominator, which is 2 times 10, is equal to 20. For the first possible value of x, we get 4.5, and for the second possible value of x, we get negative 0.4. The value of the speed cannot be negative, and so we go with x equals 4.5, which gives us Alicia's running speed to be 10 kilometers per hour. Jean asks 600 people to choose their favorite sport. The pie chart shows some of this information. Show that 100 people choose tennis. The number of people who choose tennis is equal to the sector angle for tennis, which is 60 degrees, divided by 360 degrees times 600, which is equal to 100. Work out how many people choose rugby. The number of people who choose rugby is equal to the sector angle for rugby, which is 27 degrees, divided by 360 degrees times 600, which is equal to 45. 125 people choose cricket and the rest choose swimming. Complete the pie chart to show this information. To get the sector angle for those who chose cricket, we have 125 divided by 600 times 360 degrees, which is equal to 75 degrees. On the pie chart, we measure an angle of 75 degrees using a protractor and label the sector cricket. When we subtract the sum of 75 degrees, 105 degrees, 60 degrees and 27 degrees from 360 degrees, we get 93 degrees, which represents the sector angle for the people who chose swimming. The heights of some plants are measured. On the grid, draw a box and Fisker plot to show this information. To draw a box and Fisker plot, we need 5 different values: the smallest or minimum value, the lower quartile, median, upper quartile, and the largest or maximum value. From the question, we've been given the smallest height as 0.6 centimeters. We were also given the range as 8.1 centimeters. From this value of the range, we can calculate the largest height, which gives us 8.7 centimeters. We've been given the median value, which is 5.2 centimeters. We've also been given the lower quartile as 3.4 centimeters. Then finally, we were given the interquartile range. From this value, we can easily calculate the upper quartile. This gives us 7.5 centimeters. A dice is rolled 100 times. The frequency table shows the results. Find the range. The range is equal to the highest score minus the lowest score. From the table, the highest score is 6 and the lowest score is 1. 6 minus 1 is 5. Find the mode. The mode is the score with the highest frequency. From the table, the highest frequency is 25 and the score with this frequency is 2. Find the median. The total sum of the frequencies is 100, which is an even number. This means the median numbers will be in the 50th and 51st position. When we add the frequencies, 16 plus 25 is 41. 41 plus 17 is 58. This means the number 3 occupies the 50th and 51st position, and so the median is 3 plus 3 divided by 2, which is 3. 50 students answer a mathematics question. The table shows the time t seconds taken by each student to answer the question. Calculate an estimate of the mean. The mean is equal to sigma f of x, which represents the total time taken by the students to answer the question, divided by sigma f, which is the total number of students who answered the question. Before getting sigma f of x, we need to get an average time for each of the time intervals. So for the first interval, the average time is 10 plus 20 divided by 2, which is 15. Then we have 20 plus 25 divided by 2, which is 22.5. 25 plus 30 divided by 2, which is 27.5. 30 plus 50 divided by 2, which is 40. Then finally, we have 50 plus 80 divided by 2, which is 65. So for sigma f of x, we have 15 times 2 plus 22.5 times 8 plus 27.5 times 12 plus 40 times 16 plus 65 times 12 seconds divided by 50. When we type this into the calculator, we get 39.2 seconds. F of x equals x times x minus 1 times x minus 2. Find the coordinates of the point where the graph of y equals f of x crosses the x-axis. At the point where the graph crosses the x-axis, y equals 0. When we substitute y equals 0 into the equation, this is what we get. From here we get x equals 0, x equals 1, and x equals 2. And so the coordinates where the graph crosses the x-axis are 0, 0, 1, 0, and 2, 0. Show that f of x equals x cubed minus 3x squared plus 2x. We've been given f of x as x times x minus 1 times x minus 2. When we multiply x minus 1 and x minus 2, we get x squared minus 3x plus 2. When we expand the brackets here, x times x squared is x cubed, x times minus 3x is minus 3x squared, and x times 2 is 2x. Find the coordinates of the turning point of the graph of y equals f of x. Show all your working and give your answers correct to one decimal place. At any turning point, dy dx is equal to 0. To get dy dx, we differentiate the equation of the curve, and this gives us 3x squared minus 6x plus 2, which we equate to 0 to get the x coordinate of the turning point. When we apply the quadratic formula to this quadratic equation, this is what we have. The numbers under the square root, minus 6 all squared minus 4 times 3 times 2 is 12. And for the denominator, 2 times 3 is 6. And so for the first possible value of x, we get 1.6 rounded to one decimal place. And for the second possible value of x, we get 0.4 rounded to one decimal place. To find the corresponding y coordinates, we plug in the x values into the equation of the curve. And so when x is 1.6, we have y equals negative 0.4 rounded to one decimal place. And when x is 0.4, we have y equals 0.4 rounded to one decimal place. And so the coordinates of the turning points are 1.6, negative 0.4, and 0.4, 0.4. Sketch the graph of y equals f of x. In part 9a, we found the point where the graph crosses the x-axis as 0, 0, 1, 0, and 2, 0. In part 9c, we found the turning point of the graph as 1.6, negative 0.4, and 0.4, 0.4. After plotting these points, we draw a smooth line through the points to complete the sketch of the graph. Sarah spins a fair four-sided spinner numbered 0, 1, 1, and 3. What number is the spinner most likely to land on? The number of ones on the spinner is higher than the other numbers, and so the spinner is most likely to land on 1. Sarah spins the spinner twice. Find the probability that it lands on the number 1 both times. This probability is equal to the probability that the spinner lands on 1 the first time and lands on 1 the second time. The probability that the spinner lands on 1 the first time is equal to the number of ones on the spinner, which is 2, divided by the total number of numbers on the spinner, which is 4. The probability that the spinner lands on 1 the second time is also 2 over 4. When we type this into the calculator, we get 1 over 2. Sarah spins the spinner until it lands on the number 3. The probability that this happens on the nth spin is 729 divided by 16,384. Find the value of n. Let's assume the spinner lands on 3 the third time. This means for the first and second times, the spinner does not land on 3, and the probability that the spinner does not land on 3 is 3 over 4. And so this probability would be equal to 3 over 4 all squared times the probability that the spinner lands on 3, which is 1 over 4. And so in this case, the probability that the spinner lands on 3 on the nth spin is 3 over 4 raised to the power n minus 1 times 1 over 4, which is equal to 729 over 16,384. When we multiply both sides of the equation by 4, this is what we have. To make n minus 1 the subject, we can apply the basic definition of log. When we type the log of 729 divided by 4096 to the base of 3 over 4 into the calculator, we get 6, and so n equals 7. Scott takes an examination. The examination is in two parts, a theory test and a practical test. Both parts must be passed to pass the examination. The probability that Scott passes the theory test is 0.9. The probability that Scott passes the practical test is 0.8. Find the probability that Scott passes the examination. For Scott to pass the examination, he needs to pass the theory test and the practical test. The probability that Scott passes the theory test has been given as 0.9, and the probability that Scott passes the practical test has been given as 0.8. And so 0.9 times 0.8 is 0.72. Find the probability that Scott passes the theory test or the practical test, but not both. In this case, we have two possible scenarios. It's either Scott passes the theory test and fails the practical test, or he fails the theory test and passes the practical test. The probability that Scott passes the theory test is 0.9. The probability that Scott fails the practical test is 1 minus 0.8, which is 0.2. The probability that Scott fails the theory test is 1 minus 0.9, which is 0.1. The probability that Scott passes the practical test is 0.8. When we type this into the calculator, we get 0.26. Find the value of h of 3. To get h of 3, we replace x in h of x with 3. This gives us 4 raised to the power 3, which is equal to 64. Find the value of f of h of 3. To get f of h of 3, we replace x in f of x with h of 3, which we found as 64. And so we have 2 times 64 minus 1, which is equal to 127. Solve the equation g of f of x equals 0. To get g of f of x, we replace x in g of x with f of x, which is 2x minus 1. And so we have 2x minus 1 all squared plus 2 times 2x minus 1. When we expand the brackets, this is what we have. Minus 4x plus 4x is 0, and 1 minus 2 is minus 1. And so we have 4x squared minus 1 equals 0. We can rewrite this as a difference of two squares. So we have 2x all squared minus 1 squared equals 0. By applying the factorization for the difference of two squares, this is what we have. When we equate 2x plus 1 to 0, we get x equals negative 1 over 2. And when we equate 2x minus 1 to 0, we get x equals 1 over 2. P inverse of x equals f of x. Find P of x. We know f of x is 2x minus 1. So we have P inverse of x equals 2x minus 1. In the first step, we replace P inverse of x with x and replace x with y. When we make y the subject, this is what we get. The expression we have for y is the same as P of x, and so P of x is also equal to x plus 1 over 2. H of x times j of x equals 1 over root 2. Find the value of x. H of x is 4 raised to the power x and j of x is 2 raised to the power x. So we have 4 raised to the power x times 2 raised to the power x equals 1 over root 2. 4 can be rewritten as 2 squared and square root of 2 can be rewritten as 2 raised to the power 1 over 2. 2 squared all raised to the power x becomes 2 raised to the power 2x. 1 over 2 raised to the power 1 over 2 can be written as 2 raised to the power negative 1 over 2. 2 raised to the power 2x times 2 raised to the power x becomes 2 raised to the power 2x plus x. 2x plus x is 3x. Now that the bases on both sides of the equation are equal, this means their powers should also be equal, and so 3x equals negative 1 over 2. When we divide both sides by 3, we get negative 1 over 6. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this video useful. See you in the next video. Bye guys.